There's a particular kind of silence that lives in your chest. Not the comfortable kind. The kind that sits there after you've sent a text and watched it go unanswered. After you've said exactly the right thing, or so you thought, and still, nothing. That silence doesn't just hurt. It unravels something in you. It makes you question everything you said, everything you didn't say, every choice you made in that conversation. And somewhere deep in that unraveling, a voice whispers, "Maybe I'm not enough." But what if I told you that the silence you just experienced wasn't about your worth at all? What if the person who went quiet, the one who pulled away right when things felt close, what if they weren't rejecting you? What if they were running from themselves? This is the part no one talks about. Everyone focuses on the dumper and the dumpee, the one who left and the one who's left behind. But there's a third figure in this story, one that most people never see clearly. And understanding this figure, understanding why they do what they do, might just save you from months of confusion, from years of picking yourself apart, from the slow erosion of your sense of value. Let me tell you about avoidance. Not as a diagnosis, not as a label to throw around, as a pattern, a response, a survival mechanism that made perfect sense at one point in their life and has now outlived its usefulness, but they don't know how to put it down. Here's the brutal truth that most people refuse to accept. When an avoidant person pulls away, it is not because you weren't good enough. It is not because you said the wrong thing or loved too hard or needed too much. It is because you were getting close enough to scare them. And that fear, that terrifying involuntary panic, had nothing to do with you. This is where most people get lost. They look at the avoidance withdrawal and they interpret it as rejection. They decide, somewhere in that wound, that they must have done something wrong. That if they had just been more laid back, less emotional, more independent, more chill, the avoidant would have stayed. So they start editing themselves. They start performing a version of themselves that's smaller, quieter, less demanding. They dim their light so the avoidant won't feel threatened by it. And this is where the real damage begins. Not from the avoidance withdrawal, but from your own self-betrayal. Because here's what's actually happening in that moment. You are teaching yourself that your needs are inconvenient, that your presence is too much, that in order to be loved, you have to be less than you are. And that lie, that single, quiet lie, will follow you into every future relationship, every connection, every moment of intimacy. It will show up as you apologizing for texting first, as you holding back when you want to speak up, as you convincing yourself that wanting consistency is too demanding. This is the real injury, not the silence. The silence is just the trigger. The injury is what you do to yourself in response to it. Now, let me explain what's actually happening in the avoidance brain. I want you to understand this not as an excuse, but as context. Because context is what keeps you from spiraling into self-blame. When an avoidant person gets close to someone they genuinely respect and admire, someone high value, someone who has their own life, their own standards, their own emotional intelligence, something interesting happens in their nervous system. Their amygdala, which is the part of the brain responsible for threat detection, starts firing. Not because there is an actual threat, but because closeness itself feels dangerous. Because their nervous system learned, at some point, that attachment was unsafe. That needing someone meant losing yourself. That love, at some point, came with a cost they couldn't afford to pay again. So their brain does what it was trained to do. It initiates what neuroscientists call a protest response. It floods their system with cortisol, the stress hormone. It creates a physiological urgency to pull back, to create space, to restore equilibrium. They might not even consciously decide to withdraw. It might feel like a wave washing over them, this sudden urge to be alone, to protect themselves, to retreat to somewhere they feel more in control. And in that moment, the very thing they wanted, real connection, becomes the thing they can't tolerate. This is why avoidants often describe feeling suffocated when nothing suffocating actually happened. It's not that you were too much. It's that their system interpreted your presence, your genuine, healthy presence, as a threat to their newly rediscovered independence. And the irony, the terrible, beautiful irony, is that the higher value you are, the more threatening you become to their internal equilibrium. Because your presence forces them to confront what they don't have. Your stability highlights their chaos. Your emotional fluency shows them the emotional fluency they're missing. You are not too much. You are a mirror showing them exactly what they've been avoiding. And they can't look in that mirror for long.
Not because it's ugly, because it's too bright. So let me reframe this for you, because I need you to hear this clearly. When an avoidant pulls away from you, especially a high-value, emotionally intelligent avoidant, they are not telling you that you're not good enough. They are telling you that they are not ready to be good enough for you. They are telling you that somewhere in their wiring, they don't yet trust themselves to hold something this valuable. And they would rather lose you than risk losing themselves in the process of keeping you. This isn't romantic. This isn't an excuse. But it is the truth. And the truth will set you free from the prison of their silence. Now let me introduce you to one concept. Just one. Because everything I'm about to tell you hinges on this single idea. Detaching from the outcome, not the connection. Most people who get caught in the avoidant trap make the same mistake. They treat connection as something that must be maintained through effort, through chasing, through proving. They believe that if they just send one more text, explain one more time, show up one more time, the avoidant will finally see what they're missing and come back. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of how avoidants work. An avoidant does not return because they were convinced to return. They return because they felt safe enough to return. And you cannot create safety through pursuit. You can only create safety through stillness, through your own grounded, unflinching presence, through a kind of radical trust in the process, not in them, but in the fact that if something is meant for you, it will come back around. And if it isn't, you will survive its absence. This is the paradox that breaks most people. You have to care, but not about the outcome. You have to remain connected to your own humanity, your own need for love, your own desire, but you cannot make that need contingent on any one person responding to it. You have to stay soft, but you also have to be unafraid to walk away. This isn't about playing games. This is about integrity. This is about refusing to abandon yourself in order to keep someone else. Let me paint you a picture of what this looks like in practice. Imagine you're talking to the avoidant and they go quiet. The old you would have spiraled, sent 3 more texts, analyzed the conversation for hours, constructed an elaborate theory about what you did wrong, probably sent an apology that started with, "I'm sorry if I," and then watched them disappear further into the silence. The new version of you, the one I'm asking you to become, does something different. You feel the discomfort. You acknowledge it. You notice the urge to chase, to explain, to fix, and then you let that urge pass through you without acting on it. You put your phone down. You do something that fills you.
You trust that whatever is meant to happen will happen, and that your job is not to engineer the outcome, but to remain intact throughout it. This is what non-reactivity actually looks like. It's not numbness. It's not indifference. It's the deliberate choice to conserve your emotional energy for something that will actually receive it. It's the refusal to pour water into a cup with a crack in the bottom. Not because the water isn't valuable, because you know yourself well enough to know that you'd rather be whole than desperate. Now here is where the power dynamic flips. Once you truly understand this, not just intellectually, but in your body, in your daily behavior, in the way you hold yourself, something shifts. The avoidant starts to feel it. Not because you told them, not because you did anything different to them, but because you did something different to yourself. You stopped performing need. You stopped apologizing for your light. You started moving through the world as though your presence were a gift, because it is. And the avoidant, who has been running from exactly this kind of grounded self-worth, begins to feel something they weren't prepared for. They start to miss you. Not in the way they miss someone who hurt them, in the way they miss something they realized too late they should have held on to. They start to think about you at unexpected moments. They start to notice the silence where you used to be. They begin to obsess not because you chased them, but because you didn't. Because you walked away with your head held high, and that image haunts them in a way that begging never would. This is the part no one tells you. The fastest way to make an avoidant miss you is to become someone they can miss. Which means becoming someone who doesn't need them to stay. Your absence, when it is peaceful, when it is whole, when it is unbothered, that absence does something to them that your presence, polluted by desperation, never could. But I need to warn you about something. This shift in power does not give you permission to weaponize it. Do not use this knowledge to make them jealous, to play games, to punish them for leaving. Do not use your newfound composure as a tool for revenge. Because if you do, you have not actually transformed. You have simply swapped one unhealthy pattern for another. You have become the thing you were trying to escape. The power I'm talking about is not power over them. It is power over yourself. It is the ability to remain who you are when someone else loses interest. It is the capacity to grieve without collapsing, to walk away without punishing, to heal without needing their apology. This is the power that actually changes the trajectory of your life. Not making them come back, becoming someone who doesn't need them to. And this is where the identity shift happens. This is where you stop being someone who measures their worth by whether or not an avoidant stayed, and you start being someone who measures their worth by the depth of their own integrity, by how they carry themselves in moments of uncertainty, by whether they can hold space for someone else's struggle without abandoning their own needs, by whether they can love without losing themselves in the process. Here is the truth that I need you to carry with you after this video ends. You are not too much. Not for anyone. Not ever. There is no version of yourself so bright, so needy, so emotionally present that it warrants being treated as a burden. The right person, and this includes avoidants who have done their own work, will not find your depth threatening. They will not call your neediness when what you showed them was genuine care. They will not disappear when things get real. They will rise to meet you.
And if someone cannot rise to meet you, that is not a reflection of your altitude. That is a reflection of their capacity. And your job, your singular, sacred job, is to keep growing higher so that you eventually meet someone whose altitude matches yours. You were never the problem. You were the test. And the test was whether you could hold on to yourself when someone else let go. And now you know that you can. Now you know that silence is not a verdict. It's just silence. And you have the power to fill your own life with enough meaning, enough purpose, enough self-respect that any silence, theirs or anyone's, is just noise in the background of a life you're building on your own terms. This is not about getting them back. It's about getting yourself back. And if they come back in the process, if they see your wholeness and feel drawn to it, then that's a beautiful outcome. But it's not the outcome that matters. It's who you become in the pursuit of it.
And that person, the one who stayed intact through the silence, who refused to dim themselves down, who walked away not from bitterness, but from self-respect, that person is going to be just fine. That person is already winning. And now, so are you.